Hello, I'm Buddy Martin. This is the Buddy Martin Show, heard 4 times weekly and once on the weekends. Standing by tonight for our special show with columnist David Whitley of the Gainesville Sun, Gannett Company. Also, we'll hear from the HBC himself. It's his trivia question tonight, and he gets to introduce it. That means we'll also have Loren along, Coach Meadows, as we call him, and we'll have Mike McGINNIS of the Ocala Quarterback Club, who has a special guest tomorrow night, along with our intern, Kyle Curtis. It's going to be a busy night, and we're talking about a lot of interesting things, some off the grid, some on the grid. Tell your friends and neighbors the Buddy Martin Show is officially on the air right now.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye!
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening and welcome to the program. I'm Buddy Martin. The squad's called the Buddy Martin Show. Otherwise, it would be the David Whitley Show. He's here tonight, as he is on most Tuesdays. Always love having David. He has an interesting perspective about things. Before we go to our commercials and start telling you who sponsors the show, like our friends at Titan MRI and among others, Meldon Law. Let's go right to the orange and blue room and talk to the columnist, the maestro himself. He must be probably out canvassing the polls tonight to see what happened. I doubt it. But here's David Whitley. Good evening to you, David. Good to have you.
Good evening. I've actually been boycotting all news from the election because I wanted to just have my laser concentration on all things Gator and all things Buddy Martin.
I like that. That's got possibilities. You know, I might put you on the ticket for next year in our election right here as our co-host of the year. You never know. David, how have you been? I know we had a little football game to write about last weekend, but it's rather interesting. We'll get into that and the way they flipped the script there in the third quarter. And maybe we're seeing a trend on this. We'll talk about it. Before we start, though, I want to talk about a couple of more human things. I know that Billy Napier talked about the human element. And one of those things tonight is what I saw on TV last night. I mentioned it. I don't know if you caught it. On SEC Network, Patrick Young, who does analysis, was on the set with Darnoka, and I forget the guy's name from Kentucky. I always forget his name, whatever. Anyway, and Patrick was on there, and I told my wife, "What's this?" And we watched Patrick and thought, man, aside from the tragic consequence of his accident, which was a freak accident the day before his wedding, he stood there. He sat there in that wheelchair. He looked so regal and so handsome and so eloquent. He spoke so beautifully. He made such a great representation for himself and the University of Florida. And I thought to myself, wow, this guy was already good. Now he's awesome because he has this internal story to tell about. Don't know if you saw it, but you know Patrick, and you know he was a Greek god, the way he was built, and such a gentleman. And it really hit me, and I thought, man, this is something. And in 2 seconds, my wife said he's my favorite announcer. So I don't know if you and the speech he gave to the university. Wow, what a speech that was! What do you know about that?
Well, I didn't see it. I was at the game.
Covering the game, yeah.
Yeah, but I've heard about it, and I wasn't surprised, because anybody. It's funny, even if you had never met Patrick, if all you remember was seeing him on the basketball court, I mean, he was, one of the more impressive looking people you've ever seen on a basketball court.
Yeah.
I mean, 6'10" and just, built
Chisel.
like a tight end, relentless player. And you say there's something, and plus he just had this effervescence about him, and always seemed to just have a smile on his face and be happy, that kind of thing. And then if you did get to talk to him and see him speak, you say, I mean, this guy has got it together, and even back then you could see that, hey, he's telegenic and he's a quick thinker, and he's got a career in media if he wants to choose it. And he went and he pursued his basketball career abroad for a while, and then he was getting into it, and he was impressive last year, with what you saw on the SEC network, and then this thing happened over the summer, and it was just it's one of those just things that leave you scratching your head and thinking, that man, life just isn't fair, because here's a guy who literally he could do anything with his body, and one of the most gifted people physically you'd ever see, and suddenly that body was almost useless from the waist down, and it was just such such a freak accident, just not it wasn't irresponsible. I mean, you've heard the details about well, he wasn't wanting to see, but it was like driving a friend's truck 30 miles an hour or something like that,
Went
and
to a
it's because
ditch.
he didn't fit in, and the thing rolled over. The compression of his height, had he been a nice person, he'd have been fine. But being 6'10", it just compressed his spine, and suddenly, you said, like, what was it, day before, week before he was to get married,
Day before, I think he said.
the day before, here he is, 30 years old, and in all likelihood, he will be in a wheelchair the rest of his life. Although, when you see him and you hear him, you think, well, if it comes down to attitude and endurance and perseverance, he's the kind of guy who will one day get up and walk.
He's a poster boy for it, and he says he will in 2 years. And I thought, my goodness, imagine if he does, and he comes back to Zach Tech Arena. Holy mackerel! I just want to say how impressed I was. I don't know how many physical challenged people I've known a few. And Patrick reminds me of a friend of mine that when he's in that wheelchair talking, you don't even know the wheelchair's there. You don't see the wheelchair. You just see this, and you said effervescent young man who speaks so eloquently. And by the way, he majored in communications. So he's going to be, man, it would just be a great story to follow. And, we talk about the epiphanies and the crucibles of people. He's got one, but you know what? He's wearing his. And he says, I thought at first, why me? Then I realized I'm going to do this. I want to walk again. So God bless him. Just loved it. All right, speaking of hoops, you saw the game. I only saw a few clips. It was good to see some scoring, which sometimes Mike White's team didn't have, and some shooters. And the guy said Alec Fudge looks like he's there, and Will Richard. And tell me what you saw. And of course, Castleton. It's too early to tell because there were like several players out. And I talked to Mike McGINNIS tonight. He was at the game. He said he heard the same. And it's like three of them, and Stony Brook didn't have some of their best players. But anyway, the team had a flow to it. Seemed to have a flow to it. They shot the ball. They were exuberant. You tell me you were there.
Yeah, there's such a better vibe around the team, and I mean, and just I still call it the O'Dome O'Connell Center. I still can't bring myself to call it Exact Tech. It just sounds too corporate for me. But with all due respect to all corporate sponsors everywhere, but you just go in, and that's natural to some extent with any change of regime and coaching thing. But you just the players seem to be just happier out there, playing more loosely, and I mean you can see they really respond to Todd Golden, and he's such a his whole foundation is built on establishing these relationships and positivity and a lot of energy out there before and just getting them in where it's fun to play basketball for these guys again, I think. And you can see it. And there's so much, I mean, and he said, this is just, I mean, there's so much, when you think about, there's 5 months till March, this is just the beginning of the beginning. And the thing that from just a pure basketball standpoint that hit me was just the depth that they have, because they really do go about 9 deep. I mean, of good players, and he said that some nights a guy may play 25 minutes, the next night's 5 minutes. And to do that though, you have to buy in to the system and realize that it's more about team than me, and there seems to be that camaraderie among these guys that that they are willing to there is a good chemistry for this team, and it's unfortunate in a way that I saw where they're ranked seventh, picked seventh going into the SEC. It's sort of funny. So are the women who played last night, and that's more a reflection, I think, just on how tough the SEC is than this team. Because this team, and you got to like Todd Golden say, our goal is to make the tournament, and he's set that out there, and anything less than that he will consider a failure. And the talent isn't. I mean, we're not talking Kentucky level talent here, but there's plenty of talent for him to work with out there. So, I mean, the new guys you mentioned. I mean, it's funny. Castleton's the only starter back, and he was. If you had to have one starter back, he'd be the guy you'd pick.
It's a good one, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But
go ahead.
I mean, C.J. Felder's looking better, and Kwasi Reeves, and but then the new guys they bought, and you mentioned Fudge. You got to love the name.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's a guy to remember. Will Richard. I mean, names that Gator fans may not know yet, but you'll get to know these people. And Kyle Lofton, especially at point guard. Really, he and Castleton are the only two guys that seem like they're going to start every game. The others, it's just going to be rotations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But bottom line, it's just more fun to go to games right now.
David, you missed the breaking story. You of all people, trained newsman as you are, I thought sure this would be your column today, and I see it wasn't. I can't believe you missed it. Kawasi's new hairdo.
Oh yeah, I thought. Yeah, I'm saving that for. I was thinking about working it into a column. I said no, this deserves its own space.
Yeah.
Not to dilute it with all this crazy game stuff and analysis.
Yeah,
I want to go talk to whoever's doing this and I mean last year I got to admit last year sort of threw me off the antler look. It seemed like it
was different.
It might get in the eyes. But
what does this look like? I've not seen it. What does it look like?
Well, he got that. It's tightly cropped. And he bleached it sort of blonde, but the pièce de résistance is he put the red hearts around.
Red hearts. No horns. No horns.
No heart. No. And
wow.
And it just let's just say it's unlike anything you've probably ever seen. Certainly, I don't think trying to remember my Florida basketball history. I don't think Bartlett or Norm Sloan had any guys that
don't believe that there was a single long hair on either one of the heads of those teams.
Yeah.
Is it kind of like Dennis Rodman type thing?
Yeah, it is. It would be Rodman-esque. It's something that Rodman would have shown up with.
All right.
It's too bad in a way that he doesn't quite have Rodman's skills yet. I don't think he's an NBA Hall of Famer.
He'll shoot it, though.
He also doesn't have Rodman's emotional baggage.
Right, exactly. All right, David, stand by a second. We'll run this real quick. Hit from Titan MRI.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
All right, thanks very much, Jeff. And that's it, Titan MRI, sponsor of our segment tomorrow night with David Logan and, of course, with Shane Matthews as well. All right, so you wrote about the defense in your column. That was the story. And someone says, will you please talk about the game on Saturday? All right, let's start with the defense. And it's been well documented about the speeches and how that seemed to fire up everybody. And I think we heard a lot about Miller and his leadership and what have you. Give me your take on what you saw there, and let's project that into Saturday when the South Carolina Gamecocks come to town as a 9-point underdog.
Yeah, the halftime thing, people were talking. He made it that Patrick Tony made a lot of adjustments like that. I frankly am not enough of an X and O guy that I could see it. They were playing differently, and so, but we asked Billy Napier about that, and other people, and he said they didn't really make that many adjustments. The main adjustment was just between the ears of the players, and they realized they just started holding themselves accountable and playing better, and because it's so easy to just point fingers at a coordinator and say what an idiot. You know, again, I'm not in the film room. I don't know what they do, but I don't think their game plan changed that much between the first and second half. It's just the players just woke up and said, "Hey, we just have to play better," and that gets back to the overarching thing of this whole season is just the culture of accountability that Billy Napier is trying to bring in there, and I don't know if the fact Brenton Cox wasn't there matter. If any, from a they didn't seem to miss him on the production thing, and again, I don't want to venture into locker room problems, but whatever it was, I think his attitude was a problem, and that's why he's not here. And the new guys haven't had the kind of attitude that you want, the kind of attitude that I think manifested itself in that second half.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. That definitely something happened there. I think you saw an element this team needs of resolve. They wanted to win that game, and the coach asked them for more, and they gave more. They played better. They communicated better. And it's funny, watching the game and listening to Shane and Sean on the broadcast, which I try to do usually, it was clear that everybody thought the worst might happen in the second half since Texas A&M was receiving the ball and had been going up and down the field like Evel Knievel, for crying out loud. And looked like every time they got it, they scored. And so, they get it back, and they're leading by 4, and Florida's going to be behind by 11, and who knows? And guess what? They made them punt. A punt, that's when you drop the ball and kick it with your foot, because we didn't see any of those. And then it started. And then, of course, AR-15, and he played terrific. I think, he's just shown me so much more. And I'm going to get to that subject in just a minute about what's the scenario where he could come back, and do you think he should come back? Because I do. But that's just me, and I'm not saying he will nor that he should. But I would like him to consider the possibility. But anyway, what we saw there was a bit, I don't want to say transformational, but you get where I'm going with this. There's something special. First time Billy Napier's team has ever come back from halftime to win a game. Look at the rankings tonight. I have them down here, if you didn't see them. And it strikes, finally people are waking up to the fact that all Florida's losses are the ranked teams. And 3 of them are in the top 10. And you think, well, now, wait a minute. This doesn't look like too bad of a resume right now. So, anyway, tell us about South Carolina, a team they were favored over. And then let's talk about Anthony Richardson, to stay or to go.
Yeah. Carolina, it's sort of, I think, Shane Beamer. I'm always tempted to call him Frank, even though he's certainly not Frank Beamer, his dad.
No.
But, he's sort of in the same boat that Billy is in this year. Last year, he came into a program trying to rebuild it, get his culture going, and they going to a bowl last year was big for them, and he's got it turned around. And they're sort of a hard team to pin down, sort of like the Gators have been. Because you look at they beat. Well, at the time it looked more impressive beating A&M. That doesn't look so impressive now. But they beat Kentucky. But then they look terrible losing to Missouri, and you get to looking at it, and they offensively they've really had a lot of problems. All the grief that Patrick Tony's had here, their offensive coordinator is getting twice that up there for not using the guys correctly. And Spencer Rattler, big name, came in and he's been okay. I think he's a decent SEC quarterback. The problem is that people still think he's supposed to be this transformational Heisman guy that he was supposedly built up as in Oklahoma. He turns out he's not that.
Yeah.
But, and talking to people up there, you say that they think that beating Vandy last week, they scored 38 points, might have sort of been a good sign for that offense. But defensively, they've had a lot of issues too, and they have played a pretty flimsy schedule. If you throw out that Kentucky game, they really don't have a good win, and so it does feel like this is the kind of team they could beat. You sort of want to hit the brakes though, because you don't want to, with this Florida team, it's not the kind of team that you want to assume it can beat anybody, even South Carolina, and you don't want to you can't chalk any game into the win column just automatically with this team, and even though the vibe is so good now, and winning that A&M game was, has everybody feeling good, you just think of how quickly that would change if they come out with this, sort of overlooking them and thinking, all right, well, we've got our act together, and then Beamer is just the kind of guy and the kind of team I think they could come up and bite them if they don't go out there and are serious about the and that's where I'm sure Billy Napier is drilling this into those guys' heads.
Yeah, I'm not buying South Carolina, and I didn't buy Kentucky, although Kentucky beat Florida. And certainly I'm surprised at Texas A&M. But again, look at the schedule they played, and look at Florida losing to 4 ranked teams, including 3 of the top 10. I mean, it's a world difference in the level of competition, and we'll see if Anthony Richardson can continue how he's playing as well. Let me ask you a question, and Mike McGinnis is standing by in the orange and blue room. We're going to get him on in just a minute. And I think he's got a special guest speaking tomorrow night at the Quarterback Club. We'll talk about that in a second. But I want to talk about what university I'm going to do. Tomorrow on my show, I'm going to do something, and probably nobody will want to watch it. If that's the way it is, fine. Although I have David Moulton on later. I want to say, this tomorrow night, that the University of Florida has meant so much to me. I started thinking about this, that it gave me almost everything I ever had, including my education and a chance to get a career and what have you. And here I am later in life, 2 centuries later, still covering their sports. But I got thinking in a good feeling gratitude about it. And the reason I thought about it was my friend and former classmate George Solomon. You know who George is? George was a classmate with me at Florida, along with 4 of the guys who were all sports writers, and had a professor who hated sports writers. And anyway, so George is coming to town on Saturday, and George is going to be at the journalism school, and he's going to have his other 2 sons. And his other 2 sons, one is Aaron, who's the producer of Around the Horn, and has been for 20 years. All the only producer ever had. And then there's her son, his grandson, George's grandson, and Aaron's son Bennett, who also goes to Florida and is a journalism major, and in fact worked for us for about a month at Gator Bait, and then he got a better deal, whatever. But he wanted to go on the radio, and he said WRF. They'll be there being honored by the journalism school. And so I'm going to try to make it over there and say, because I think about the legacies of these people. I'll talk about it tomorrow night, but I worked with 3 guys who were sports editors of major daily newspapers, and that was a big deal then. We had sports editors all over the place. So very, very proud of that as a legacy, University of Florida. I know nobody else cares about it, David, but I thought you might since you're a journalist.
Oh, I do. Yeah, George Solomon, he's one of those Mount Rushmore guys in this industry.
Yeah. George does very well. Hired some great people. Tony Kornheiser, gosh, we could go on forever. Many outstanding. Tom Boswell. I'm not going to go on and list a bunch of them. But anyway, your thoughts about your education. You went to Florida, right?
Yeah. I believe it or not, like you, they gave me a degree. And I don't know if I've returned it, if I've lived up to it sometimes, but it's the journalism school there is, that's what, one of the things that attracted me there. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but writing seemed like a good pursuit, and
you're good at it, and you're very good at it, David. Don't be modest.
It was it's funny how important that you have to make that college decision when you're pretty young. You don't know what you're doing, but man, how it impacts your life.
Yeah, I backed into it. I just by accident I got there. So I wanted to play baseball. I walked on. That's how I got there. But anyway, we won't bore people with our resumes. But anyway, there's that. Now, let's go on over to the Orange and Blue Room and see this guy, and you'll see him tomorrow night. I want to say, in addition to being a friend and a very successful official, and a replay guy, and he's the captain of the Ocala Quarterback Club, where you'll speak tomorrow night. He's also an associate editor of Gatorbait and does a very fine job of catching our mistakes, which is a full-time job. Let's bring in Mike McGINNIS and say hello to him. Evening to you, Mike. How you doing?
I'm good, David. Good to see you and good to hear you. I'm anxious to see you tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we are too. Yeah, it'll be your first time with us, and I can tell you up front, I really enjoy reading you. And I'm not too sure that, how would we say, David Whitley, the wit. I love your humor in regards to your columns. You bring my smile to my face when I read you.
Well, I appreciate to hear that. Hearing that, you know, I studied at the feet of some giants like Buddy Martin.
Yeah, right. Giant on that. Well, look, I mean, Mike's a very good. No,
that sets the bar pretty high.
Yeah, they let me speak about 10 years ago. That's about it. But Mike, I just want to praise Mike here. I mean, it's under his leadership that this club has flourished when the rest of the clubs around the state are struggling. And Mike, you tell me, but I think we've had an average attendance of like 90 people or something in these meetings. You know, you don't get 90 people anymore at a quarterback club, and it's been really amazing that even through the COVID times that you guys held it together. I'm honored to be on the board. I don't have any authority, but I'm glad to be there. And Mike, tell us how in the world a quarterback club did that, and talk about these meetings and even people who might want to go hear David speak tomorrow night.
I don't know where to start, buddy. I can just tell you this. We've got some avid members that are loyal, that have been there a long time. We're just around 90 members now. But I want to give you credit, Ed. There's no reason to point to me or anybody else, but you took the bull by the horns and ran hard with it about 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm here to tell anybody who wants to hear and doesn't want to hear that you were responsible for doubling our membership from 40, 45, 50, almost to 100, a little over 100 one year. And we're thankful for that. In the meantime, back to the members. We've got some loyal members that enjoy coming. We meet at the Elks Lodge. They treat us good. They serve good food. We enjoy that a lot. And we've been fortunate to have speakers like David Whitley come and entertain us. And I think the guys like that. They seem to anyway. And in regards to the whole COVID year, the only thing I can tell you is we just didn't give up. We did everything we could to try to have a season that year, and we were able to do that and plugged along and made it through. And that's probably one of our proudest moments.
David, this club was about to go under, and they needed some suckers, some patron saints for lost causes. So they found me and McGINNIS and Wes. Wes Wheeler has been gigantic, and Steve and all. There's about a half dozen guys that literally we were that close to closing the doors, weren't we, Mike? And the human spirit took over, and this club has done a lot of good things, including the Scott Bradley Trophy, which we give every year, the Founders Award. This club's, gosh, I've forgotten now, 65, 60 years old, whatever, one of the longest running, and it stayed still there. And we were told when we started this thing, and I'll get off the subject and let you talk to McGinnis. You might want to ask him an officiating question while you got him. But they told us really that, people don't like to go to those things anymore. They don't really care about this. The younger we don't care about this stuff. And we got no encouragement at all, did we, to speak up, Mike? Just, I guess you say, indomitable spirit of a few people in the club.
I would say that, yep. Word of mouth, bring your friend, bring a brother, bring somebody that hadn't been before, and it just expanded itself. And now back to the loyalty. We've got some guys that tell me they wouldn't miss it. They look forward to it every Wednesday night, and I'm really proud of that. And it makes me feel good, especially with the response we get from how they've enjoyed many of our speakers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So if you ask him, David, I'll let Mike go and get out of here because he's got more important things to do than be on this show. I know that. But the thing is about this is, Mike, if you ask him, he's not too happy with some of the zebras. His fellow zebras he's seen. I don't know how much he'll tell you because he doesn't like to criticize them, but let's just say it like it is, David. There's been some sorry officiating this year, okay?
Yeah. It's
Well, buddy, I'll chime in there. I don't know where it's coming from, but I can tell you what, I'm just astonished at some of the things and the rulings that I'm seeing, especially after having spent 10 years in the replay booth. I saw a targeting the other day at the goal line there at the pylon on Bennett, the quarterback of Georgia, that was picture perfect, and they took it off. I just don't understand unless they've changed the rules and I'm not aware of it. And then I saw I think it was a Tennessee player down in the end zone, just as big as ever. Quarterback fumble, big lineman lays on it. He's in the end zone. He's down and nudges it out to the half-yard line, and they overrule a safety, which is what, in my opinion, it was.
Looked like a safety to me.
Yeah, I don't understand what they're looking at. And I don't even know that I know any of the guys that are left. I know a few guys that come to the stadiums. I know they're still active, but I understand up in Birmingham that there's some guys up there that are questionable in regards to being football officials, having any experience in that regard, or if they're just common fans sitting up there making a ruling. And it almost makes me feel that's the way it is. And I know I'm shooting from the hip here and probably upsetting a few people, but I'm upset. I was proud to be one for 25 years, and again, 10 years up in the replay booth. And I'm ashamed to see my wife and I watch on television when we're not at a Gator home game, and she's as knowledgeable as I am just about, and we can discuss those things, and it just flabbergasts me to see what the rulings sometimes are from what I knew they should have been when I was doing it a few years ago.
Well, yeah. So, David,
like you ought to be speaking tomorrow night, Mike.
He does. He's got his 2 minutes.
Yeah. I'd love to hear your views, because you obviously know where you're coming from on this, and there have been, you think once replay became more prevalent that some of these things, there's no excuse for some of the things you're seeing, and it makes you just question, just the professionalism of some of these people or where they're getting them from.
Don't know. I wish I could share with you, but I don't. What little bit I do know, and some of the rumors that get to me, and I'm not totally out of the loop, but certainly not anywhere near where I used to be. But you get there early tomorrow night, you and I'll have a great discussion. We'll just get off to the side and talk about it. It'll be my pleasure.
We'll do. Mike, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it very much. And by the way, those people talking about the Gator Club, this is not the Gator Club. This is the Ocala Quarterback Club, who's been around here since 1960, maybe. I don't know. I forget the year. But anyway, it's been a long time. 65th year, I believe it is, isn't it? Something like that.
67.
Yeah, and so the reason it's not, the Gator Club is associated with the University of Florida and is funded and everything else, whatever. We are not. We're an independent group of football fans. And by the way, we're not just Gator fans. We are welcome. We are 95%, but there are people in there who from other teams, and that's okay. It's a football club, Mike, isn't it? It's not a Gator club.
Right.
Yeah.
And we try to press that and stress it by all means. We've got Georgia fans in there. We got a Notre Dame fan. We got Florida State people.
Kentucky fan. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Treadwell, yeah. Well, thank you, Mike. Yeah, well, that's the thing is that you're celebrating the game of football, having fun. Mike, thanks so much, and I know you'll have a great event. I wish I could come. My grandson's birthday is tomorrow night. But anyway, David, I know you'll do great, and Mike will take good care of you.
I'm sure he will.
See you tomorrow night, Dave. Buddy, thanks for having me on again.
Thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate it.
See you guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
David, that's one good dude right there, and he does a hell of a job. He's what he has done. Not to mention, he's a great proofreader. Well, he saves my butt all the time. All right, so let's just round this thing up. I've kept you way over time tonight, We were talking about University of Florida, what it meant to us. I told you about the one thing I didn't say. I'm going to talk about it tomorrow night. Is if it wasn't for the University of Florida, I wouldn't have my wife, Joni. And the story goes about like being a roommate with a guy from Chiefland, PK Beck. He and I went to a drive-in, which was then called a Pig and Whistle or whatever, University of 13th, and I had just come back from a semester off, and we went out. We had an apartment, and we decided to go over there and have a hamburger. And we were eating a hamburger in a car. It wasn't Sonic, by the way, and down the 13th Street comes this big guy, and we recognize him because he's our fraternity brother at the Phi Delta House. His name is Vic Miranda, who happened to be an all-SEC football player who'd been out of school and was back. And PK Beck from Chiefland and I sat there. He said, "Oh, look, there's Vic. Let's go say hi to him." So we got out of the car and went over, and he was with some blonde girl, tall blonde. And we went over and, "Vic, how you doing?" He said, "Hey, yeah, you guys, come on down to Gatorland." Gatorland was a beer joint, 3.2 beer, by the way, and which is all we had back in those days. And so we went down there, and I met this lady from Miami who was 19. Her name was Joan Sharp, no E, as like to say. And we got to be friends, and we thought, well, we'll go out maybe one night and show you around. Big man on campus. So. P.S. Years later, we were married, and we've been married for over 60 years. So there you go. So what a moment. You wonder about those moments, don't you? Those things that happened. That just, what if I hadn't gotten a hamburger that night?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Life is very random.
Very random. It's also wonderful to be able to have a tradition like University of Florida. We've been all around the country, lived in Denver, lived in New York, whatever. And then we go back here, and University of Florida is still our place, and a place that will always be special. Tell me about your experience before you go, David. What was it like for you?
At UF, I wouldn't. When I got here, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wasn't any good at math or science, and so they had the sort of all the colleges gathered together in one thing. And I went over to the journalism class and said, "How many math credits and science credits do you need to get a journalism degree?" They said 2, and I already had that. Says, "All right, well, I think I can do this." And frankly, I failed my first. I got kicked out of reporting the first year because I couldn't pass the typing test.
You may laugh. That's important in those days. I mean, it really is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were back the old Smith Coronas. And, The teacher was actually Al Newharth, who founded USA Today.
No, Al wasn't teaching.
It was his son.
Oh, his son. Yeah.
His son was a visiting professor.
Yeah, I knew Al. I worked for Al, so I know his son too. I didn't know he taught typing.
Well, because I couldn't pass the typing test. He said, "You can't be in." I was like, "Oh, I can learn." But it wasn't exactly a huge setback. So I had to take a typing course, and now you don't even think about it. It's funny.
That's right.
But, I made it through, and in fact, the first guy I ever interviewed was Norm Sloan, and I was scared to death.
Well, you should have been, because he could be a jerk. He could be a real jerk. Yeah.
I remember I made an appointment with the secretary and went in there and had a big tape recorder, put it down. I said, "Do you mind?" He said, "Oh, I wish everybody would," because he was sure everybody was out to misquote him or something like that.
Oh yeah, he'd been on the call up and scream at you, which you did to me a couple of times.
Yeah,
for sure.
Oh yeah, and just took it from there. And you're right, college, I knew it was going to be huge, and you don't know what the right decision is. I mean, you can feel right, and looking back, but you think, all right, well, maybe if I'd have gone somewhere, how different your life might have been.
Yeah.
But then you realize, well, I wouldn't be here now, and if you're happy where you are, you made the right decision.
Yeah, I'm glad this guy's where he is. He's busy right now. He's coming on next. And say hello, Loren. This is David. You may see him. You'll be there. Loren. Darwin Meadows will be there at the Quarterback Club tomorrow night saying hello. And
yes, sir.
All right, Loren, I'm going to go ahead and put Coach Spurrier on with the trivia question. Let David hear it. We'll say goodnight to David. You get David, and you got some swag to give out tonight, I understand, right?
Yeah, definitely do.
Okay, all right, well, here you go. This is here's the question tonight. And this guy's not Loren Meadows.
Here's the question. Who was the first coach to lose a game against South Carolina? I had 10 games against them. Who was the coach that lost the first game? No, we didn't lose to them in 10 years. Who was the first Gator coach to lose to South Carolina? Steve Spurrier. I was 10-0 against him.
I was 10-0 against him. Made that point, yeah. All right, there's the question. You think about it, David. And good luck tomorrow night. And this guy here will take good care of you. All right, Loren?
Very well. All right, Loren.
Yes,
see
sir.
you tomorrow night. Thank you, buddy.
Read David in the
See you tomorrow
Gainesville
night,
Sun.
David.
All right, thank you, David. What's up, Coach? How you doing?
How you doing, sir?
Well, you got replaced by the HBC, huh?
Yeah. It was I was there to shoot the trivia question, and it seemed like if you go to the source, this is where this thing all started. And Spurrier came out. He didn't have his traditional microphone, but he still had his whistle, and they were doing the Mary Wise show there, and they had some people there for some of the other events that are going on, obviously, tonight, if you know what I mean. And so he was making the rounds, but, he still found the time to come out and give the patrons there a treat. I always like to see Coach Spurrier, and he, my question was kind of similar, not similar to his, but in some ways. And we just went ahead and go with the bigger star on this night,
I would think so. Anytime I get to HBC, you want to do that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have a little later on. We'll have Kyle Curtis on. He's got a big trip planned. He'll take off to Germany on Thursday.
Yes,
we'll talk about, you and I are going to talk a little X's and O's, which we did on Sunday morning on the Orange and Blue Blood show. Before I did that, I want to talk about coaches. We're starting to see the blood on the floor, the beheadings for the coaches, and we saw one yesterday in Jeff Scott. His dad was better known than Jeff, naturally. He was fired by USF, and now we're hearing, a lot of different names like you always do. It's kind of a sport that we play. Who's going to replace the guy who's been beheaded? And I'm hearing a lot of names. I'm sure you are too. And you always like to hear the big ones first. And, of course, John Gruden's name is brought up. But no one really knows any. It's just all guessing, whatever. But, by the way, I didn't realize how bad Jeff Scott's record was. 30 games.
Wasn't very good.
4 wins out of 30 games.
Yeah.
You just can't survive like that.
No. And particularly not with a recruiting base. I heard you and Shane talking about it this morning.
Yeah.
Some of the recruiting base that you have in West Florida and Northwest Florida and even proximity to Georgia and some of those things, you can't be that.
Yeah.
You can't be that bad. Jeff Scott's a good offensive football coach too, so I feel bad for him.
Conversely, in the NFL, Frank Reich, who's a longtime veteran of player, was a great quarterback at Buffalo himself. I wouldn't say great, but a really good quarterback. He threw like 6 touchdown passes one time. And he was the head coach at he was the head coach of Indianapolis, and he got fired. And the controversial thing is that Bob Irsay didn't even interview anybody. Never mind interviewing an African American, the Rooney Rule. He went right to Jeff Saturday, who never coached a day in his life, and hired him as head coach.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have a real problem if that's what you want to do, but if you're going to pretend like you have, some modicum of interest in you being fair, give everybody a chance, it seems like you do a little bit more of a search than that. On the other hand, he didn't go back to the old retreads. He got somebody new.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like I said, Jeff Saturday has the interim tag. He'll take him through the season. I don't know. I've known Jeff since he was playing center at the University of North Carolina. We had some mutual friends on the team, and my family moved to Durham in 1993. So I've known Jeff, lightly. I wouldn't say we're friends. I know of him. I've talked to him a couple times back then. and seems like a pretty good guy. And I mean, I would say this, and you know how I am. It's kind of it looks bad for Irsay, but the one thing I will say is I know Irsay was extremely good to the Dungy family and hired Tony Dungy when he was fired by Tampa Bay, and also was extremely good to Jim Caldwell, and has always kind of been on the front line of some of those things. But it just in today's day and age with some of the issues with minority head coaches and things like that, it's not a great look for Irsay at this time. But I think they'll get it out. And the good thing about it is Jeff Saturday, if he's not a popular pick as a player, as the coach, he was a very popular player in Indianapolis, Indianapolis Hall of Famer, and I think that he'll at least get them through the season. And then they can lick their boots, regroup, and maybe find someone else with a little bit more coaching experience.
Well, he's also very good on TV, I think. Does a good job. So that's the
he's
point.
excellent. That's great.
Yeah. We're having election night tonight. We're flying in the face of that, and a lot of our listeners are there. We have a little bit of a slim pickings tonight, but that's okay. We do what we do every Monday through Friday. Gators are 9-point favorites. I saw today the FSU line. Do you know what the line is on that game?
7 points. My partner at work, FSU fan, and I told him, it's kind of funny. He's kind of a soccer guy, great dude, but he was already bragging and boasting. I'm like, dude, they still got to kick the ball off. You don't win on the spread now. So he was gloating though. He got his chest puffed out for sure.
Yeah, well, they were ranked today. I got the rankings here. If you didn't get a chance to see them. FSU was 23rd, and
I did see that.
Yeah, I'll read them off real quick, and we got Kyle standing by in the orange and blue room. We'll get to him. But FSU was 23rd, Notre Dame was 20th, Texas 18th, Utah 13th, Ole Miss 11. I'm going backwards. Clemson was 10. They dropped. Alabama, man, 9. That sounds hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the way things are going, who knows? And then they had LSU 7, Oregon 6, Tennessee 5, didn't make 4, but they probably will be there because of the schedule. You got TCU playing Texas. They're 4th. Now, Michigan has to play Ohio State. Ohio State's 2, and Michigan is 3, and Georgia's 1. So something's got to give there. We'll see what So that's what it looks like. I don't get too excited about it at this point in time. It'll be pretty hard for Alabama to get back in it from here. They're pretty much out of it now, Alabama.
Right.
A lot of people are all over Oregon. They love Bo Nix and whatever, and Bo's played great. I don't know. I think LSU's a better football team than Oregon is, in my opinion. I think they're really good. And for all you Tennessee lovers that thought they were the real deal, they just can't play at this level yet. They probably don't deserve to be there. And we'll see where the TCU keeps winning, coming back and winning. So those are your rankings, all right? So, all right, so let's talk about the question. And let's talk about, we have a couple of answers. One more time. What give them the question? Let you give it this time.
The question was basically, who was the first, very simply put, who was the first Florida coach to lose to South Carolina?
Okay.
Who was the first?
Had a few guesses, not many, but this will go on. This will be the last one. Well, actually, this is closed. This is already closed. We got 4 already, right, for the finalists.
Yes,
and,
sir.
And I hope you'll read them. All right, so then you want to read off the 4 finalists that have won for the past 4 weeks and draw them tonight?
We, you know what? Let's hold off one more week.
Okay.
Actually,
you've been busy. You traveled to Texas A&M.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you got 4 names in there.
Yeah,
we know we're still gathering prizes.
Got 4 names, and I got the prize for the. So I got the prize already.
And I'm going to throw in one too. So.
Okay. So yeah, well, between Buddy and I, we got a couple things, and I was able to come by some things with an outside interest. So we'll definitely take care.
But why don't we just go ahead? Why don't we just go ahead and throw these in there with this one? Then we'll do them all at one time next week. Who, if you get a winner? Okay.
So the winner would be Mr. Kenny Green, and I'm not familiar with Kenny, but he got it right out the gate.
Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer.
How about that? Yeah. Congratulations, Kenny. You made it in. You're one of the 5 finalists, so your name will be in the drawing. Loren promised me next week, unless he decides to go off someplace on another football trip across the country, which he did last week.
No, we'll be.
Yeah. It was one of those.
And the funny thing is, I got to go back. I missed one name, and that's why I don't want to miss anybody.
Oh, man, don't do that. Get us in trouble.
Yeah, because it was the one from when we had to tape the show, so I want to make sure we get that one in.
All right, good. All right, so here are the guesses. Kenny Green. You also had. Let's see. We have here. We had. Will Muschamp and one other Broadway. I can't remember. So light attendance tonight. So was one of the prizes that you get dinner cooked at your house by Kyle Curtis? Is that one of them? I think it was.
If Kyle's cooking, he can cook at my house. We got a decent kitchen, but you don't want me or Marsha cooking. That's for sure.
I think Kyle was going to come over and walk your dog and wash your car and cook your dinner, I believe. That's $1,000 value right there. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah. I hope he's been using his Babbel to learn German while he's over there.
Well, let's find out.
Speak English.
Let's find out.
I don't know if you guys want my cooking.
Well, you bring us back a trinket from Germany. Tell us about your trip, Kyle.
Yeah, so we're still planning to go. It's been a little bit hectic because of this hurricane coming in. They canceled all the flights out of Orlando tomorrow. So I'm actually I'm trekking it to Atlanta and kind of skipping because we had a layover in Atlanta. So I'm skipping the Orlando to Atlanta flight and just going straight to Atlanta. And so I don't even have to worry about the tropical storm. So there's a few of us in our class that I think we're leaving at like 5:30 on Thursday morning and heading to Atlanta to catch the flight from Munich. And then we get to Munich and we're right into like I think a 5 or 6 hour walking tour. So really hitting the ground running for sure.
Well, if you want to make it up to us, since you can't work, you can just take me along. I'll carry your bags.
I would love it. I would love it.
For sure. Well, that's great. Tell people again what you're doing over there, Kyle.
Yeah, so I applied for a program through the University of Florida's journalism school this past summer whenever they came out with the opportunity to go to Munich and cover the Bucs Seahawks game. It's the first ever game in Munich, and it's kind of we're more so focusing on the aspect of being able to globalize the NFL and kind of just spread the game that we've all learned to love here. So I'm really excited to be able to be a part of something that we could look back 100 years from now and be like, this was a turning point in football.
Okay, that should be good. Now, I don't know that Toby said this is right, and I can't vouch for it because my memory's not that good. You can look it up. That Urban Lawson, Stephen Garcia was the quarterback. Is that right? It doesn't sound right. I don't know why, but maybe he's right. Look that up.
Yeah, I think that might be right. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Yeah, but yeah.
All right. Well, Toby didn't get in soon enough. He might have won. So, all right. All right. So going out, let's talk about coaches in trouble. First, let's talk about amazing Damian Pierce. Here's some numbers. Damian Pierce at Houston has 562 rushing yards after contact. All right. First in the league among rookies. 40 rushes for the first down, first in the league among rookies. 50 missed tackles forced, first in the league among rookies. What's wrong with this picture? Where the hell was he when Dan Mullen was the coach?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't have lost my job over not giving the guy the ball. I mean, I always said it's kind of twofold. As many Florida fans will be upset that obviously Damian Pierce didn't get the carries that many people thought he deserved. I think Dan Mullen did him a favor by not putting wear and tear on his body as a back here at the University of Florida, and that's why I think you see sometimes a lot of backs that kind of have a lot of tread on the tires going into the NFL don't last as long. But you look at Dameon Pierce's numbers against obviously the best of the best, and you think a couple close games last year that Florida could have came out on the winning side of.
Yeah.
Would they have been different? Or even, you talk about the shoe game against LSU and some of those games. If he had given Dameon Pierce the ball and really allowed Dameon Pierce to get a rhythm like you get in the NFL, what could have happened to the last couple of years? But it's one of those things where, I'm proud of Pierce. Seems to be handling himself. They're not winning very well, but he's keeping his mouth shut and just toting the football. And I think he's got a big future. Houston's gonna come to like him.
It's called bad coaching, guys. All right, speaking of bad coaching, I'm going to give you 4 names of who's in the most trouble in college, okay? Who of these coaches is in the most trouble? Mario Cristobal, how about getting slaughtered by FSU at home? They were leaving the stadium at halftime. Brent Venables, what a mess he's made up in Oklahoma. Kirk Ferentz, a veteran coach who's been around for a long time now, people are starting to call for his head. Or the controversial Jimbo Fisher. Which one is in the most trouble and the most danger of losing your jobs? Who wants to go first?
Go ahead,
I can go
Kyle.
first. I'm going to go with Jimbo Fisher. I think that there was a lot of hype around the offseason. The best recruiting class of all time. He's kind of been there a few years now. The money, obviously, one of the bigger contracts in college football. And he's had a proven record of winning in the past and also kind of not holding up to that standard. And he came in there with high expectations. One of the best programs, NIL-wise, which is now going to be talked about more often. They have some of the best resources, some of the best facilities in the nation. So it's kind of just stuff that you have to work with and you can't really make excuses for. So especially after doing that story last week on the state of the Texas A&M quarterback room and how kind of all the fans are feeling about just the quarterback situation, but the head coaching situation in general, I definitely think Jimbo Fisher is probably the number one person on the hot seat and definitely has the most pressure on him.
Remember now, it's a 2-part question. Who's in the most trouble and in danger of losing his job? That's an $85 million ticket. Now, I understand the Baggies got a lot of money, but again, I'll put that over to Loren. Again, coach is in trouble. Who's in the most trouble and which one is most in danger of being fired? Jimbo Fisher, Kirk Ferentz of Iowa, Brent Venables, or Mario Cristobal?
I'm going to say Ferentz. And the only reason is I agree with Kyle. Obviously, I came back from Texas A&M enamored with the facilities, the amount of resources, and wondering how that could be a 3-6 football team. With that said, I think Ferentz is one of those people where the message may be wearing thin. Mm-hmm. And, even though they may win the Big Ten West, still have the opportunity to do so. It's kind of like what they're doing is lacking innovation, and they're starting to be passed up by the Minnesotas, the Illinois, and those kind of things. So I think Ferentz, he just been there so long that those in power may think, maybe it's just time to get some young blood in here, kind of resurrect this thing, maybe jump into the 21st century a little bit. And really, see what we can do with this thing and really grow it. So I'm going to say Ferentz. I mean, all those guys. I mean, I think Cristobal and Venables in their first year they're okay. They'll get another year. But I think all in all, if you say, who's in the most trouble and in
jeopardy,
in danger of losing the job, I would say Kirk Ferentz.
I would agree with that. Go ahead.
Especially with Oklahoma and Miami. I mean, both those teams have top 10, top 15 recruiting classes coming in. And as Oren said, first year.
But Jimbo Fisher does too.
Yeah, but he's been there.
Still got a top 10 recruiting, got the number 1 recruiting class.
Yeah, I think it's comparable to how kind of Billy Napier's obviously done better here, but a lot of people at the beginning of the season are like there were obviously doubters going on Gator Twitter or whatever like that. So and the main reason for him is he has all these guys coming in, give him time and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of the main reasoning that Cristobal and Oklahoma Venables has more of a leash, more so than Jimbo Fisher. But I completely agree with you that Jimbo Fisher does. I mean, has that recruiting class coming in.
Well, the truth is,
The other
Lauren,
thing,
go ahead.
buddy, I'm sorry, and I
It's
want to
okay.
add one thing too. A lot of times, it's a money-driven decision in some ways. And with Texas A&M, I was talking to Jay Jacobs after the game, who's the assistant athletic director. He was telling me that after they play LSU this year, that very week, A&M is going to tear out like maybe 10,000 more seats to make room for more big donor suites because they can't keep up with the suite demand.
Yeah.
So I think that, I think there's enough people that kind of believe in where the program's going. And, it really takes a couple of years for a number one recruiting class to materialize. So I think they may allow Jimbo behind the scenes to kind of see it through and let these guys become sophomores and juniors and see where that'll go. But I think, it's definitely, it's a contentious situation down there for sure.
Yeah. Okay, great job, guys. I want to say happy trips, bon voyage to Kyle. And Kyle will have a baseball story this week in our magazine. Kudos to Brendan Martin today, by the way. He was wrestling the bull today. He was jumping in there with bull. He was up for all hours of the night with the set people trying to hack us and what have you. Did a great job of getting things done. It's a tough deal, and those are the unsung heroes we have out there. We got guys like that. We got guys like Chris Spears. We've had other people like Mike McGinnis on tonight who are behind the scenes doing stuff all the time, and they are really great. They do an awesome job of supporting us. And Chad Rich, too, I don't want to forget him. So, yeah, all that. Guys, the magazine is looking good. Loren will have his preview and his analysis on what Florida needs to do to beat South Carolina or vice versa. I don't know what he's going to write. He'll be this weekend. Franz Barrett, of course, will be contributing his usual brilliant copy. And I'll tell you, I'm going to write something personal this weekend, basically about my life at the University of Florida, how I got there, and what it means to me. And we'll mix in with some football, too, as well. So, all right, guys, thanks a lot. Good job, Loren. Good job, Kyle. Safe travels, Kyle.
All right.
Thank you. I'll give you guys updates. Send you guys pictures.
All right. Keep going.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kyle. All right, Loren. Good night, buddy. Thank you.
All righty.
All right, folks, let's go wrap up the evening. I want to be sure and tell you about my friends over at Renstar Medical Research. They're such special people, and they do, not only did they support our program, but they support our town. We have told you that Joey Sorrentino, the son of co-owner Joe Sorrentino, was a player at Florida. He was a walk-on defensive back in the national championship team, one of Urban Meyer's favorite players. Joey's a dentist here in Marion County now. And thank you for what they do there. They are a first-class, high-quality patient-centered clinical research facility here in Ocala. They tailor-make some of their research to us right here in our community. They do these research trials, and they do them on things like Alzheimer's and psoriasis, osteoarthritis, fibromyalgia, etc. And they get the results and they send them off to pharmaceutical companies who can tell us how we can better be treated with medications, etc. They do quality work and they're part of these prominent pharmaceutical companies. So it may have an opportunity for you to be a part of some of these conditions. You can go to renstar.net and look up what they're doing, the trials, and you could be involved. I tried to get in one once before and I couldn't make it. Not because I just couldn't get in because of the time factor, but yeah, I still might, you never know. So Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Thank you for our guest tonight, David Whitley. Always glad to have him. Mike McGINNIS, one of the great guys, and doing a great job at the Quarterback Club. David Whitley will be speaking there tomorrow night. Don't forget, if you have interest in joining the Quarterback Club, you can DM me, and I'll put you in touch with Wes Wheeler. Also, thank you to Loren Meadows, who did a terrific job last week out at A&M and the coverage. And also to Kyle Curtis, who's got an exciting trip. On behalf of them and our sponsors, we'll say thanks for listening, thanks for watching. Tomorrow night, George Solomon, former sports editor of the Washington Post. We share some personal stories tomorrow night. Hope you'll join us.